Welcome. My name is Mansour Tay, and in the next few minutes, I'm going to be sharing with you some ideas and some strategies that you can apply if you have an interest and if you have an appetite for investing. Over the past 15 days, 14 days approximately, I would say, I've spent some time talking about wealth, sharing some ideas on how to achieve wealth in such a way that you have a complete lifestyle. One of the things I shared from the Wealth series was a principle. The principle was simply that wealth is like a science. As a matter of fact, Wallace Wattles said that there is a science to getting rich, and that it's an exact science, like algebra or mathematics. In other words, there are laws you have to understand, there are principles you have to follow. If you apply the laws, if you obey the laws, you succeed. Now, if you've read the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, I'm drawn to a section in the book where a number of people came up to a very wealthy man. As a matter of fact, he was the wealthiest person in Babylon. And they asked him a question. They said, "We've studied you, we've observed you, and we don't understand why you have more favor from the gods, because we work as hard as you do. As a matter of fact, we don't think you work harder than we do." They said, "We started together as young youths. We studied under the same masters. We've worked as hard as you have, but we don't understand why you've created so much wealth and why the gods favor you and they don't favor us." Now, his name was Arkad, and he said that if you haven't created enough wealth for yourself over your lifetime, then it's for one of two reasons. He said, number one, you don't understand the laws of wealth. And he says, but even if you do, you don't obey. Number two, you don't obey the laws of wealth. So you see, wealth is a science. Now, I started the investment journey by study. That's what I'm going to share with you. You're going to find all through this session and all through this series, there's one word that is always going to come up, and that is wisdom. That is a pathway to achieving any life you want. It's going to come up regularly. I'm going to say it often, to the point of being redundant. But here is what I want to share with you today. I want to begin the investment series. For the next 2 weeks, I'm going to talk about investing. And I'm going to show how anyone can create and achieve their financial dreams and goals. I come from very humble beginnings, and I think perhaps that's the best place to start. You're probably thinking, who is he? Now, I found when you talk to people, they have one of three questions. They're asking, number one, who are you? Number two, what do you have to share with us? Number three, why should we even care? I'll let you decide the final answer to the third question, but I'll share the first with you, which is, who am I? I come from humble beginnings. I'm born and bred West African Nigerian. I immigrated to the island of Great Britain, London, at a relatively young age. Raised by two great parents. Spiritually, we were wealthy. Father was exceptional, amazing. Mother, incredible. We had the right philosophies about life. We had the right attitude. We had gratitude of heart. So spiritually, we were wealthy. Materially, we fell short of the mark. And I came over to the island of England with the same beliefs and mindsets that I grew up knowing. And part of the difficulty that I found was back home, there's a lot of corruption, obviously. And I had this philosophy about wealth. One of the things I found was I always viewed those who were wealthy as thieves. They had stolen from the poor. Part of my beliefs was somewhat guided by what we had seen. There were people who had achieved their wealth in true means that were not really right? And so I always had this perception that the rich and the wealthy were crooks. Unfortunately, I came with that mindset to England, and I came to England because I had a dream, I had a vision of a better life. I came in pursuit of that dream. And this is what I found. You can have a great dream, you can have a burning desire, you can have passion. And all of those three will not lead to success. And the reason is very simple. You've got to take that dream you have, convert that dream into a goal. The goal must be converted to a plan. The plan must then be formulated and developed into a strategy. And from that strategy, you must develop habits, daily habits. You see, the difference between those who achieve a level of success that we admire and those who struggle all their lives comes down to habits. What you do daily decides who you become permanently. Bring a poor person, bring a wealthy person. All you have to do is look at their habits, and you can see where one has fallen short and where one has maximized opportunities. It comes down to habits. After a number of years of arriving, I stumbled and stumbled and stumbled, and I got to a point where I was almost depressed. I was doing everything that I could. I had a clear vision of who I wanted to be. I had an image of the future that I wanted. I still had the dream that that caused me to leave my family, travel all the way to London, knew no one, had no family, to begin a journey. So I had a picture of who I wanted to be in the future. The problem was, I was falling short. I hated the results that I had created up until that time because they were not consistent with what I wanted. I hated where I had come from in relation to poverty and lack. So the thought of going back was out of the question. I had burned my bridges. I had promised myself that I would find a way. I had people obviously that looked up to me for inspiration, support and hope. I had family. So I had to succeed, but I was failing. And here is the point. It took a number of years for me to learn what I'm trying to share with you. My transformation process started when I began to study. You see, because I had a belief system about the wealthy, I never learned from them. And you cannot learn from someone that you don't admire. You cannot learn from someone you resent. So, if you're not creating the results you want, if the results you have in your life today is not what you really want, if you have a picture of a vision of a better future, let me invite you to do what I did. Open up your mind and be open to ideas and strategies that have been used by other successful people. The reason is simple. Success leaves behind clues. You don't have to be creative and try to reinvent success. Simply find success and replicate it. It's really that simple. And so some of the ideas I'm going to share with you are ideas that I've learned from other great men and women that I've applied and I've seen great results. And some of the strategies enabled me to go from poverty and having nothing, being in debt, to becoming financially free, retiring from my engineering profession, becoming financially free at 30, retiring at age 33, and now living what I call a purpose-driven life. And that is what has brought me here today, where I'm now sharing some of my ideas, because I believe someone out there might be journeying through what I went through, and they might be looking for some direction. But more than anything, I believe that if we pursue wisdom and if we're humble, that we can truly experience the life that we were born to live. Now, from my journey and having traveled around the world since, I found that even in the most developed countries, most people are living under economic slavery. We claim to be free. Now listen here now. I'm going to say a few things perhaps that might stretch your thinking and perhaps may not sit well with you. It's coming from a place of love. We claim to be free, But when we take our holidays, when we wake up in the morning, when we go to bed, when we take time off to spend with family, are dictated by other people. Someone else decides how we live. And we do that for 50 years, slaving for money, helping other people build and achieve their goals and dreams. And at the end of the 50 years, we have nothing to show for it. Reason? Because for all of our lives, we have lived like the 97% of the population, instead of learning from the 3%. Unfortunately, we continue to recycle the wisdom we have, whatever that might be, and the wealthy continue to recycle their wisdom by teaching their offsprings. And so what we have is the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. If you want to experience a good life, I believe that the first thing you must do is study life and find out how things work. If you want to be successful, study success. If you want to be wealthy, study wealth. If you want to be happy, study happiness. If you want to be healthy, study health. Life begins as a study first. Then it becomes a practice. Then it becomes a habit. And then you fashion for yourself. And that's the word, fashion. You fashion for yourself a lifestyle that you want. But it all begins by study. So I began my journey by study. I had identified a few people that I admired, but people who were creating results that I was hoping to have someday. And here's what I did. I studied their beliefs. I studied their habits. I studied their character. I studied their lifestyle. And I came to a conclusion that they knew something that I didn't know. And the results that I had created so far, I didn't like them. So I simply made a decision that I would let go of my past and that I would create a future worthy of me. But in doing that, I made a conclusion and a decision that I would model myself on these 4 areas of life. I said, well, my beliefs haven't served me till now. Make room for more beliefs. My habits were poor habits. Make room for more. My lifestyle had to change. Make room for more. And as I modeled myself on these people, I found the principle of life, that nature is neutral. Nature doesn't care whether you're poor or whether you're wealthy. Nature doesn't care whether you're African or whether you're American, whether you're Australian or whether you're Mexican. Nature doesn't care. Nature doesn't care whether you're brown or white or blue or gold. Nature simply says, if you put in the seed into soil, you will get a harvest. It's a promise. And so as I started to model their beliefs, model their habits, and model their character, my results started to change. I'm going to be sharing over the next 2 weeks some of the principles that I learned, some of the principles that I've applied, and some of the principles that are creating changes in my life. And I think can create changes in your life if you're willing to work them. See, there's no such thing as something for nothing. You're going to have to work the plan. I'll give you the plan. You're going to have to work the plan if you want the results. To begin the investment journey, the first question you have to ask yourself is, why do I even have to start investing? There is a simple formula for wealth. But to understand wealth, you must also have an appreciation for poverty. Every coin has 3 sides. You have the heads, you have the tail, but you also have the edge. One side of the coin is poverty, one side is wealth. To really appreciate both, you have to stand on the edge so that you can look down both sides and then make the right decision for you. I don't want you to simply accept everything that I share with you. I want you to study what I share and then take the information, study other speakers, study other sources of material, and then make the right decision for yourself, because this is your life. The formula for poverty is different from the formula for wealth. I've lived on both sides of the coin. Now, I found for a long time the reason I stayed poor was because the principle I applied was this simple formula. P equals E minus S minus S. It wasn't until I changed my beliefs, my habits, my character, my lifestyle, and started applying a different principle formula called W equals E minus I minus S. Now you're probably thinking, what does this all mean? It's very simple. Wealth is created as a product, not of what you earn, but of what you do with what you earn. The E represents earnings. The poor and the wealthy, the same amount is earned. So you can have two people earning the same amount. So the amount doesn't play a part. And I'll show you over the next few days how even earning the minimum wage can still create a wealthy lifestyle. But the poor, when I was living from this side of the coin, I found that I spent what I earned first. That was the first thing I did. In other words, my habit was one of spending. Poor people spend after they earn, and whatever they have left, they save. The problem in my case was I had a situation whereby my expenses far exceeded my income because I had no financial wisdom. I hadn't been taught about the purpose for money. So I spent more than I earned, and therefore I was always in debt. As a result of that, I had nothing to save. A lot of people apply this principle and this formula, and even when they have little left after spending, it's so little that what they do is they save. Now, they now have to save what we call actively. The problem is, if you're saving money today, you're becoming poorer. And I'll talk about that in more detail as we go along. The wealthy, on the other hand, earn the same amount of money, but the first thing they do is invest. They set aside a portion of what they earn for investment, and that happens first. Now, the ancient Babylonians had a principle that they said, pay yourself first. Before you go spending all of your money, take a portion of what you have, set it aside for the future. Invest, not save, invest. Once you're done investing, then whatever you have left, you can spend, but still, don't spend all of it. Spend applying what we call a budget in mind so that you can create a surplus to allow you reinvest. This is how wealth is created. Unfortunately, this is what 97% of the population subscribe to. 3% do this. There is a science to getting rich. It's an exact science, like algebra or mathematics. It's a formula. All you have to do is follow the formula. So, in this series, I want to show why and how anyone can begin this investment path and journey. And the reason is simply because no one teaches you this in school. There are 4 parts of the education system. Unfortunately, if you go down the formal route of studying, you only learn 2. The first is what we call academic education. The second is what we call professional education. This we call formal education. That's all we generally get from school. This will keep you poor, but it will provide you with security in the form of a job, but it will keep you poor. And that is the purpose of wisdom. The school is not responsible for teaching you everything you need to have the life you want to experience. The school is responsible for providing you with the first level of education sufficient for you to now go and search for what you do not know. The ancient writer says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open. So, you must search. You must seek if you want to find. The third part of the education process is what I call personal development, which is what we're doing now. What we're doing now. Here you learn about yourself. You learn how to set goals. You learn about time management. You learn about purpose. You learn about passion. You learn about how to stay focused. You learn about how to get along with people. You learn how to sell, how to market, how to negotiate. You learn life skills. A lot of these skills are already taught in the schooling system. And so, 3% of the population, which is the wealthy, have the advantage of personal development because they read and they study. So they have more wisdom and they pass that knowledge to their kids. The poor, the 97% on the other hand, are educated, but all they know is academic and professional. So they pass on the same philosophies to their kids, and we all focus on this job and the word security. But here is what is sad. Academic and professional education will teach you how to use your 5 senses. Sight, sound, touch, taste, smell. Because when you start learning, you learn how to read. And they start teaching you how to use your 5 senses. Unfortunately, they don't teach you all of the other parts of your higher faculties. You see, we all have a mind. And one part of our mind is the conscious mind and the other is the subconscious mind. Here you have your 5 senses, which is how information comes into your mind. But you also have what we call 6 higher faculties. Imagination, perception, intuition, memory, will. Your higher faculties is where greatness begins. I'll say that again. All greatness, all wealth, success, good fortune, the good life begins by understanding how to use your 6 higher faculties. If you don't use them, you have an average life. Now, the final part of the education system is financial education. And very few of us understand money. Very few people understand the purpose, the intent for money. I grew up thinking that money was there to be spent. Actually, I grew up with the belief that money was the root of all evil. And so every time I got money, I had to get rid of this evil thing. Until you have financial education, you will not understand the rules of the game of money. And here is the point I want to make before I move into investing. All of us are playing the game of money. Some of us will work 7, 8, 9 hours per day for 50 years, working for money. And I get really puzzled by the fact that we work so hard for one thing, but we haven't sat down and studied what we're working hard for. And if you don't, you're going to lose. Financial education comes, like personal development, comes through what we call self-study. The bottom two is what leads to financial freedom. It's what leads to wealth. More than anything, is what creates the abundant life. So, you must decide to combine formal education with self-study by acquiring wisdom. That enables you to know how to use the resources you've been given to achieve the results you want. Now, I started a few minutes ago giving you a formula. In the formula, I said to you that wealth is simply, that's the formula for wealth, EIS. So, it has less to do with what you earn. It has everything to do with what you do after you've been paid. So, how much do you keep and how much do you invest? So in this investment session, I'm going to show you how to take a portion of what you've earned, set it aside, invest it wisely, and how you can compound and multiply that to create a wealthy lifestyle. It'll be very simple, it'll be very practical. We'll make this as clear and basic as we can, so that anyone can apply the same process to their individual lives and create changes for themselves. But you must begin with wisdom. You must begin with the openness to study. And here is what I'll suggest to you. All you have to do is just listen. If the ideas don't sound right for you, you can discard them. If the ideas sound as though they could help you, you can use them. But what I found over my journey was, for a number of years, every time I heard something that sounded different to what I was taught, I would ask myself a simple question: is this different to what I already know? If the answer was yes, then I rejected the information, which is a very flawed philosophy and a flawed way of living. It wasn't until I started to ask myself a different question, which was, can this new information that sounds radical and sounds different, can it help me achieve my goals? When I started asking a more empowering question, I started to attract more empowering answers. So, as I begin the investment session very quickly, I'm going to start by saying this. Everyone wants to be an investor. In some way, we want, even if we don't want to be the investor, we want to have the returns. We want to have what can be created from investing. And a lot of people think that investment is all about a strategy, a vehicle, options, various other sources of creating wealth. And that is not the case. Investing begins with wisdom. And so in beginning your investment journey, the first question I will ask you is this: what and why are you investing? What is the purpose? We start with the word purpose. What is the purpose of your investment? Why are you investing? The reason I'm asking this question is simply because as we journey through, what you'll find is that there are various investment vehicles that are more advantageous over others for specific reasons. But if you do not understand why you're investing, what you realize is you can't maximize the investment. I'll give you a few ideas of what people normally think about when investing, so that you can ask yourself the question. Number one, are you investing because you need quick cash? Are you desperate for money? You need money. Perhaps you're in a difficult situation, you're in debt, you've got to get money immediately on a regular basis because of your position financially. There's nothing wrong with quick cash. Number two, are you investing because you need regular income coming in? In other words, you need cash flow. You need money flowing in regularly. Because that makes a difference. You've got to understand what's the purpose. Number three, are you investing because you're hoping at some point to leave your job and become an investor, a full-time investor? Number four, are you investing as a way of topping up your income? So I stated a few minutes ago that I lived a life whereby my expenses exceeded my income. Now, for some people, perhaps you fall in that category. I went through 3 stages in my journey. The first part of my journey, I had my expenses greater than my income. At this point, I had zero financial understanding or wisdom. Then as I started to learn and journey and study, I found that I started to apply better principles, especially as I started to study the lifestyles of the people that I admired. Eventually, by applying the principle that I put forward in the equation, W equals E minus I minus S, I brought my expenses to the point where it was less than my income so that I could invest. Some of you will have to journey through all of these. It will all depend on the amount of wisdom you have as a foundation. For some people, you might find that you already have the basic understanding, so you know that you have to learn to live within your means, which is one of the key starting points to creating wealth. You must discipline yourself to live on less than you earn. Are you investing because you're trying to build your net worth?